All right, let's do this. Hey, we're back. It's Friday, my day. Party time, Friday lunch party here at 343 TV. My name is Abe Duque. I am an instructor at 343 Labs. We're a school. We have schools in Berlin, New York City, and online. I always say go to our website and check us out. Check out our class schedule. By the way, I want to get this out of the way quickly. I have some new classes starting myself. I have a class starting on Sunday at the school in New York. I have a class starting on Monday online. It's an online immersive. The class on Sunday is going to be a mixing and mastering class. Goes at 12:15 in New York, and the class on Monday is a Ableton immersive that'll go for a month. We meet 4 days a week. It's quite fun. I actually quite enjoy that stuff. Meeting almost on a daily basis with you guys. Anyway, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be back again. It's a great day. And I have a great thing to share with you guys. And by the way, let me say hi to the people there in the chat. Simple Sam is always there, and he has a question already. If you could buy any isotope, which one would it be? Maybe plutonium. I don't know. We'll discuss that today. We are doing isotope today. We're doing isotope Neutron. Neutron being the channel strip, but I wanted to say hi to the people in the chat. Simple Sam, Freddie Mayboka, Max Wild is here, Martin Crockett. Anyway, yes, we're doing Neutron today from Izotope. So what is Neutron and why are we doing it? Well, it dropped yesterday. It dropped the Neutron 4, the brand new version of Neutron dropped yesterday. And today I just thought, it'd be a great idea to just kind of go through this. What is it? Well, it's a modern channel strip. I think that's the way that we can put it. And what is a channel strip? Well, let's get to, let me open up my DAW here and let's get to playing with stuff here. So hold on. Let me switch over to my Ableton view here. Okay. Let me move my camera to the right place. And just give me a second. I want to repair something here real quick. So, well, that's not working. So let's just leave it the way it is for now. Let's try one more last thing. And okay. Anyway, so as I was saying, Neutron is a channel strip. And this is the fourth version of it, and some new things have come up in the fourth version. They've included some very interesting new advances, and wanted to go with it. Simple Sam's Plutonium is a good choice, very good. How the CPU usage on Neutron 4, not bad. I've been using it for the last few days, and just kind of get ready. And actually, I don't have an Apple Silicon machine. But it's thanks Max Wow says thanks, nice hat. Thanks, Max. It's an Apple Silicon ready piece of software, and so apparently if you have an M1 or more plus chip, you're gonna have a really good time with it. But I tell you, I don't have that, and I've been rather okay. Okay, so let's keep going here, and let me show you what I meant by what a channel strip is. So a channel strip is basically, if you could imagine an old console, and let me pull up one of my plugins that have maybe that do this. So I think maybe we can do like a NSSL E strip. So this would be the old idea of a channel strip, which would be like, you would find it on a console, and it'd be just one channel on with one fader on the bottom. And what is included in it was usually compression and EQ and filtering, and maybe some tools for like phase flipping and so on. Pretty much what you see here. But this is the old idea of what a channel strip is. Neutron, well, that brings it into today. So let's have a look at what Neutron is. By the way, I have this set that we have been playing a couple of weeks ago with to kind of just use it on. And let's grab the channel strip. So I would have to go to my Izotope. I have a few of the Izotope things in here. And let's drop Neutron 4 in there. Okay, so there it is. And this is the more advanced view. We can go to the view that is meant for sort of beginners. So if you're so imagine you're pretty good at writing music. You're pretty good at laying it down on your DAW. You've learned the ins and outs of your DAW. There's a lot to learn, and you get to the point where your track is there, but now you need a little bit of mixing help. Now you don't have mixing and mastering chops because, well, you spent all your time learning, just how to use the DAW, but now you need to figure out how to get a little bit more, power in the mixing department. So you can grab Neutron and start dropping it on every individual channel, and you can use this assistant to help you out. Let me have a look. Some people are asking questions in the chat. What's the annoying click all on your streams? Oh, that's when you guys actually type in something. The annoying click is actually, and maybe I could shut it off by doing this. The annoying click is every time there's a little chat entry, that click happens. So if you're wondering what that is, that's what that is. So here we are. Neutron in the assistant view, and we're on, let's see what track we're on right now. We're on the bass drum track. So let's play audio for this bass drum. Now it's listening to your audio and preparing a custom processing. And soon it gives me what it thinks it could help me with. Hold on, I'm going to change my buffer size here a little bit because I think I was doing some recording earlier and I had a low buffer. So I'm going to get a little bit of higher buffer so I don't get any problems with all the software that I'm running on my computer right now. Okay, so so what we get right now is this readout with this kind of it kind of realized that it was a kick and gave us this kind of spectral readout of what it thinks this kick should sound like or could sound like. And it actually got me 50% there. I could actually bring it back to what we had before. And if I go to 100% of which means this white line you see here is what my kick's spectral sort of readout is all about. As I push this, it tries to get it closer. You see that moving? It tries to get it closer to what the recommendation is. And basically it's giving it a little more of a punch. If we move back, that's my kick without anything. And this is what it thinks it could use. Now, beyond that, I could, grab some of these, I think they call them intent controls or whatever, down here, where I can start to, maybe edit the kick in a way that's, kind of, a very easy layman's term sort of way to understand how to work with it. For right now, we're dealing with punch, for example. If I raise the amount of punch, the punch in the kick comes up. Lower the amount of punch, the body of the kick is felt versus the punch of the kick. Punch, body. So you can hear the boom on it more, and now you can hear the punch on it more. And you could work with the attack here and get it to be sharper or less sharp, and the sustain to be more or less. But these are controls that reflect some more specific controls in the kind of more pro kind of view that you can go at later. Next to it, you have a distortion control, and this is new in Neutron 4, where we have a setup that gives you basically trash being one of Izotope's plugins that it's very, very famous. It's been around for a very long time, at least 10 years, and it's basically a saturation distortion style effect, and you could add some of that. As you could hear me, we're going, first of all, this is the classic one, so it's just classic saturation. So it's tube versus tape versus some sort of retro sort of saturation and some warmth, they call it. But then you could switch. This is the actual trash, which is distortion stuff. Overdrive, scratch. You can get it. You can really get it. Do some cool stuff, and then of course you can back off on it and just add a little bit of it if you want. And the tone will let you focus on high frequencies or low frequencies. For example, I kind of like what's going on there. Let me turn that off to see what it sounds like without it. So that this just livened it up some, and with some punch here. And let's turn off the whole device. So this is without the device, and with the device on, we have their sort of tonal sort of match that we went 100% on, plus a bit of the stuff that you can do here real quick. There's also a width control. I wouldn't play with a width control on a kick drum, but why not? That kind of makes that kick drum a bit wonky. If you can see, the left right here is kind of so you could make it less, you can make it right in the center. So that's probably the way you want to go with a kick drum. You don't want to expand it. You want to kind of just make it more as mono as possible. Okay, so far so good. Let's see. Freddie My Boca says, "Hi Abe, can you give me a tip for mastering? I want to know when the track is ready to go out, if the mix is clear. I'm still losing a few LUFs, but the sounds are bright." Okay, it's not really a mastering class, but I'll just talk about it real quick. I don't care about LUFs anymore. To be honest with you, I think LUFs are an interesting thing, but I do what I can to make it sound as good as possible. And if that means I have to sacrifice some LUFs, whatever. I can explain that more to you if you come and take one of my classes. I have a class starting on Sunday that's a mixing and mastering class in New York City, and I have a class, on Monday that starts online. But yeah, I actually don't pay attention to LUFs as much as I used to. When LUFs were first a thing, like in 2016, when the streaming services started to implement LUFs, I absolutely obsessed over LUFs. But now I just make it sound good, and whatever LUF score it is. It's never usually crazy. I saw an interview with one of Kanye's engineers, and he was saying that he's fine with -2 LUFs, which is ridiculous. That's such a low LUF score, but and that made me think like, yeah, well, who cares, um, you know. Anyway, let's keep going. So what we had here, of course, we can go through the list of instruments. Like it honed in on it being a kick drum, so it immediately, chose this kick drum sort of tone match. But you can have regular drums, cymbals, snares, toms, so on. Let's keep it in the kick. I mean, there's other categories as well. There's like instruments and all sorts of things here. You could also store your own if you like. But let's keep it moving. Let's actually go to the more advanced portion of it. So when you got this going, you can click on this button here, and this will bring you to what actually is happening under the hood here, and what's working. And you don't have to go to this sort of assistant if you don't want to. If you think that you have enough knowledge and can handle mixing a track by yourself, you can go ahead and just jump right into this part of things. So let's take this from scratch, and what I could do is now erase everything that happened in that kick, and let's get it. So now as we play it, it's going to be really just neutral with no sound coming through any of the devices here. But let's start with equalization. So we have a pretty cool EQ here. I'd say top of the line in some sense. There's it could have a little more going on, but for what it is, it's really pretty good. You have a number of interesting patterns that you can choose: bells, a reverse bell, a proportional, a Q, a band shelf, a low shelf, high shelf, low pass. And each one of these categories has like in this high shelf, you have an analog or a Baxendal or a vintage analog high shelf, low pass, a couple of choices there. So pretty cool selection of patterns for your EQ. And one of the coolest things is that it has dynamic EQ setup, which is really nice because we all need dynamic EQ. Dynamic EQ is what I think is really important when you look at a modern EQ. And what is dynamic EQ? Well, let's play around with this and just show what dynamic EQ is. Let's pick this point here. Now I can take this and boost the frequency, this bell, but instead of that, I'm going to change it and make it dynamic. And when I make it dynamic, I want it to go up. And what I'll do is I'll make it rise here at this frequency, and then bring that threshold down. And as you can see, when the volume or the amplitude gets loud enough in this part of the frequency, it pops it up. So it's normally staying at its baseline, but when it gets too loud here, it pops it up. And the same thing can be done the other way. It could be, and that's in expand mode. We can go the other direction and make it do compression. This is actually compression, but it's dynamic. And compression on an EQ, dynamic EQ is compression or expansion on EQ points, which is super powerful. So a lot of the times people will tell you, oh, you need like a de-esser or something like that. Well, with a dynamic EQ, you can use it in lieu of a de-esser, because the de-esser does exactly that. So very powerful that it has that included. Very nice. You have also a sidechain setup here where you can do sidechaining directly from here. But let's see, what else do we have? I'm going to set up a channel with just an operator in there, just to kind of show what's going on with this. And let me grab this operator and drop a. So I have a sine wave here, and I want to grab a spectrum analyzer so you could see what's going on there. So between the spectrum analyzer, I'm going to drop the Neutron. So I could show you some of the interesting things you get in here. So there's a self-saturation mode here in this, and you'll see that with this sine wave and the self-saturation on, you get a bunch of harmonics already. Let me turn that off so you could see the difference. And this is, you know, this is included in it's basically making it less of a modern sort of transparent EQ and bringing it into the realm of like a classic sort of vintage EQ, which, you know, out of the box already adds a lot of stuff that wasn't there before. So saturation becomes an issue here if you want to get that going. And I'll leave that track in there, and we can come back to it at times to just see what we can get out of it. All right, so we have an EQ. Also, right over here, we can check out the different grid setups here. Right now, I'm doing an extended log, but we could do a regular log or a piano roll, which is nice. The piano roll will tell us what notes are actually being, you know, dealt with in this frequency spectrum here. I find that very nice. Let's look at some of these other devices here that we might have. So as it comes to a kick drum or a drum sound, maybe a transient shaper might be a great thing to play with. Let's solo that kick so we can just deal with this transient shaper. So what is a transient? The transient is the very beginning of a sound. So it denotes the change in the waveform, meaning something changed and something started to happen. And in percussive sounds, the transient is, you know, going to, if you have more focus on the transient, you're going to have maybe more punch on the sound. And if you have more focus on the tonal, which is everything else that comes after the transient or the body of the sound, then you're going to have more of a sustained situation. So let's play with that. And here I have it set up so that I can maybe just start to push the attack. And this is the actual transient going up. And it's just making it a lot punchier. I can change the curve of that if I like, or I can bring down the transient so that the body of the sound comes out more. And as you could hear, it's mostly body, and I can bring the sustain on that body up. And of course deal with the way that it's playing, and then you could see the wave and what's happening to the sound there. This is great because I could really form the punch on the kick or lack thereof if I wanted that to get going. And we have some modes here. We have a precise mode, which is really tight, and balanced and loose. And basically they just go from tight to loose in there. So this is transient shaper. So if you feel like you need more punch in your kick versus the body of a kick, you add more attack. If you feel like you want no sustain, it's only punch that you want. Look how I'm changing it now. And let's just put it back in the mix. And I'm going to turn off Neutron and see what happens. So rather a lot of punch in there. Okay, so let's try another. There's a sculptor which is kind of, in the same realm, but now we could set a target to begin shaping your audio. So this is going to sculpt the audio based on already predetermined targets. There's not a setting here for drums, so I'm just gonna maybe try that on another type of sound. Maybe when we deal with the so Simple Sam says the computer seems to have to work hard, or maybe it's the graphical thing on the GUI and the GUI. Last updates just updates slowly. Yeah, I think the graphical thing is moving slower than everything else for some reason. Let's try another one of these. So there's two compressors in here that you can add, and I suspect that is so that you can do series compression. The series compression technique I've been showing you guys in the past on this stream. I've done it on vocals or other things. It's a great way to get compression done by breaking up the job into two compressors. So let's try two compressors. So you could have two compressors in a series. That's why they allow you to have two compressors in one channel strip, so that you can get that done that way. The one compressor, let me just talk about the modes and the cool thing. The new thing is that you can have now maybe a multi-band. The compressor is not just a compressor, it's actually a multi-band compressor. So there's a compressor for every band that you have here. And you could deal with each band individually, which is really nice. And compress each band however you like, adding the compressor that you want in there. There's a punch mode. There's a modern compressor mode and its own parameters. The parameters change. Matter of fact, in the punch mode, we're really just about trying to get more punch out of it. Kind of like a little bit like what we were trying to do with the transient shaper, but a little more from the side of a compressor doing it. The original transient shapers were compressors, and then transient shapers, started to be a device that was a little bit separated from that. But this is basically a compressor used as a transient shaper. And then this is a compressor that's a modern compressor that has a threshold. The punch one doesn't have a threshold. This one has a threshold. So if I wanted to deal with it like this, I could bring down the threshold and set the threshold, meaning the trigger where compression actually should be done. Maybe it's the stream. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a stream. I'm not getting any error messages from my streaming software. Simple Sam says it's a little choppy, the graphics. Anyway, here we have the threshold. The typical compressor controls are here: attack, release, and makeup, gain, and then you could do the parallel compression thing here by, blending in the compression that you might want to have. Here's the ratio setting. The knee is set over here. We know that knee in a compressor is basically making it so that it maybe works like a shock absorber. It allows compression to begin before the threshold slightly, so that it'll ramp up into the threshold. So usually like sound goes and crosses the threshold and then the compressor kicks in. But with a knee setting, if you have let's say a 6 dB knee setting, it'll happen 6 dB before the threshold is breached, that the compressor actually starts to kick in a bit. So so that's where you set the T on this modern compressor. And we have also a vintage compressor here with basically the same settings, but different, but different sort of processing. If we put that through the operator, we probably will get some more different harmonic signature out of it. Let's see, getting this going in here. So playing that. So we were using an equalizer with the saturation in it. So let's now try to add the compressor and put it into vintage mode and add a little compression with that. I'm going to set it so that we can actually hear. And you could see already that the compressor, without it, with the threshold being all the way up, right? The compressor's all the way up. It already adds saturation to the sound. And here are the harmonics that appear out of that. So let's see if I go to modern, how it changes. And you see that going to modern takes away the saturation that, so we go back there and you see the vintage compressor without it being like the threshold's all the way up. The sound is here. The threshold is not even getting close to it. If you add some compression to it, it's probably going to be more severe desaturation. And if we switch to the modern, we get a little bit of saturation still. It's impossible to avoid any harmonics, but in the vintage setup, it's already got harmonics going on before we even start to try to compress. It's pretty cool. Oh, Simple Sam never got the knee parameter, and thanks for explaining. Still need to look that one up. So the knee, just to expand on the knee is, it's basically, I like to think of it as a shock absorber. So if you're driving with your car and you hit a bump or you hit a hole, and if you hit a hole, your car is going to smack hard. If it doesn't have a good shock absorber, it's going to feel real hard. If your shock absorber is good, it's going to, lighten the bump. It's going to make it squish a little bit nicer, and it's gonna feel like a bump, but it's gonna not kill you rattle your car. And basically the knee works to do that. It takes away jerkiness in the compression action. When you refer to knees, you talk about hard knees and soft knees. And a hard knee is a knee that's very, very low, meaning there is almost no or zero knee, setting. And a soft knee is when you give it a good amount of knee, so that the actual compression begins a lot before the threshold goes on. So there's that. Keep on asking me, and I'll keep on telling you. So, all right. We're about halfway point. Just wanted to remind you, you're watching 343 TV. My name is Abe. I'm an instructor at 343 Labs. We have classes that happen all the time. We have schools in Berlin and in New York City, and of course online. And if you come to our website, 343labs.com, you could check out our class schedule and maybe take a class with us. Also, if you're into we have a new product called 343 Studio, which is basically like a dojo for producers. It's a subscription-based model. You come in, and we have all sorts of like master classes and mentorships and collaboration workshops where producers can like get their chops up and work with some people that have been doing this for a very long time. So come and check us out at 343labs.com and see what we got going on. I have a class starting on Sunday, a mixing and mastering class in New York City at 12:15, and I have a class starting on Monday online, which is an Ableton Immersive. It goes 4 days a week, actually, Monday through Thursday. Abe, thanks for being here, fella. Always love your stuff. More than anyone, I can implement what you share with us, and that's from Stefan Brodigan. I hope I said your name correctly. Anyway, let's get back to this Neutron. So we were looking at the devices that are found in here. So we have this compressor with, again, you can set different compressors. So there's 3 compressors here for each band can be compressed on its own. So on this kick, we're running it through. Sorry, let's get this going. Let me make sure I'm on the right compressor here. So this kick is this compressor, the low end compressor, is the only one going right now, and I can get that frequency kind of tamed and under control. I'll raise the ratio, and I could have this compressor over here do something else. Maybe even flip it if I wanted to. But the fact that you could have multi-band compression out of this compressor is pretty awesome. And it also has RMS and peak modes, which is and true peak modes, which is amazing. This is a complete run through. So RMS and peak basically deal with the ballistics of the sound, meaning how the sound meters over time. And RMS, it stands for root mean square, and root mean square sort of meters the sound that hangs around for a longer time, about 300 milliseconds. So if a sound is hanging around for 300 milliseconds, then it shows up on the RMS meter. If the sound is a little faster and only hangs out for, like, say 10 milliseconds or somewhere between 10 and 300 milliseconds, it'll show up on the peak meter. And true peak metering will show really any super fast sound even below 10 milliseconds. So this is going to tell the compressor basically how to react. Do we react to something that just momentarily happens so fast that normally you just let it go, or do you attack it? And you can make very specific and very tight compression actions by going between these three modes. Usually I've seen peak and RMS, and to have true peak, which is very nice to have that in there. So it's a sort of very modern sort of advancement on this. Anyway, let's continue to see what we have. So you could have a second compressor to do the series compression thing. I'm not going to do that one right now, but then you have a few other devices. Maybe we'll look at the exciter now and see. The exciter is basically saturation, and let's get that going in here. So in this, I have the classic exciter mode, where I can go to tape, tube, and warm, and I can add some here. So you could hear the retro, tube, warm. And then it has the trash plugin that has been that famous trash plugin that Izotope has had for a while, where it has the overdrive, scream, scratch, clipper. This is nice. Let's add a little less of that though. And of course a mix control, which is nice. So you could add just a little bit of it. And if you wanted to play with the tone of it, you can get craziness like that or that going on. But super useful. Once again, let's look at it let's look at a sine wave under the trash and classic exciter modes. So let's take away the compressor and add the exciter, and let's play it through that. And looking at that, not much going on. So I'm trying to find a spot where I could put this that I can work it and still see the harmonics here. So add some. There we go. There's the harmonic signature popping up there. And so that's the retro. That's the tape. You see the difference between the harmonics and the retro. The tape, the tube, and the warm. And you see some of them skip certain harmonics, and some of them add the other ones in. So, and let's go now to the trash and see what's happening in there. And here it's just full on action. And I guess in the trash there's a lot more high frequency distortion going on, which is really nice. You can get some very expressive, look at that, even some comb filtering happening there. It's just straight scream. All right. So very cool. So that's the Exciter plugin. Let's go back to what we have going on here. Okay, I left it in a pretty wild state. Let's get that mix down. See, that's very nice. Without it, sounds like that. With it, has a little bit more of a expression to it. Really cool. So let's get some of these other parts involved. So like now I have some bass, right? So let's just take one of the bass parts. Let's take that bass. And let's say I wanna play with that bass, and I'm gonna throw the Neutron 4 on it. Not going to go to the assistant. But I want to deal with the idea that maybe there's some masking going on. So I'm going to try to get the masking between, and masking is when frequencies are kind of playing with each other, are kind of stepping on each other's toes. Let me move this over to the side. I don't need that much of a browser. And I can set up this to mask, to unmask itself from other material that might be in its way. And in this case, it might be the kick drum here. And to tell you the truth, you could do this in a few different ways. They make a big deal out of this unmasking here, but the truth is, this is not anything else than sidechaining. And you could sidechain, this to another sort of like you could sidechain the bass drum directly to the kick drum, and you could do this also with like one of the, where's the thing I'm working with right now? You could do this directly with one of the devices in your DAW, like I could do it with a compressor in my DAW. So this unmask is interesting, but it's, to me it's a little gimmicky, a little bit, where it's basically really, it works, and for somebody that doesn't know exactly what they're doing, it might be very interesting. And I'm not knocking it at all. I'm just saying that you can get the same effect from maybe just side chaining. So the idea is that you have an unmasked device, you side chain it directly to the source that you think is masking the sound, meaning a sound that is like completely somehow sharing the same frequency, and you take that and somehow set it to unmask, and then add the sensitivity, and what it'll do is it'll dip out the other sound so that it doesn't have a problem. So that's the unmasking, and you could do that in a few ways. There's also side chaining that you can do directly through this device via the compressor, for example, and via the dynamic equalizer. So you can grab a dynamic equalizer point, and then you have side chain, and I could direct it to wherever, I want an external sidechain, for example, here. And then I could get that going to wherever I set that sidechain source to be. And, so masking and unmasking in sounds. The first time I heard the term, I was like, ooh, what is that masking, unmasking thing? And it's basically when two sounds are sharing the same frequency and you want to get clarity between them. How do you get that to happen? You make it happen by sidechaining one to the other, meaning getting it out of the way. And so it's that ducking thing that you've heard about a million times, where, say you have a kick and a bass line, and then when the kick hits, the bass line gets out of the way of the kick so that it unmasks the kick somehow. Anyway, that's that. Let's see if there's any devices that we haven't really looked at. So we looked at this, pretty much everything in here. Oh, this is a gate. Gates are interesting. I mean, all it does is it closes an audio gate. It's a very simple device in all cases. You just throw this device on something that has a noisy background, and basically, if the noise is very bothersome, it'll shut down the audio gate, and it'll only open the audio gate when something loud enough, like let's say a vocal. So let's say you recorded a vocal in a room with like a fan that's coming through, especially when the vocalist is not, singing or talking or rapping or whatever. And those moments when they're not talking, that fan comes through and it's really annoying. So a gate will shut down the audio gate, and only when the voice comes through, which is loud enough to open the gate, and, you set a threshold to do that, it'll then open it up and let you enjoy sound that's clean and, only opens when the sound gets loud enough to open it. Okay, so those are the devices, and a couple of, one gripes I have about it is that, for example, like you could only have one EQ setup. Now I could have like a chain, right? Like a compressor here and another compressor and, an exciter. But sometimes I would like to have a second EQ, right? Maybe EQ something on the before and then run it through a few devices and then EQ it again. But you can't add another EQ to it, which I wish you could, because that would make it, much more useful. But of course, in your DAW, you could also drop an EQ after Neutron if you like. It's not a problem. It's not a huge problem per se. So that, that's that. What other gripes do I have? Not too many. Actually, I find it very useful, especially for those that are just getting started in their mixing and have no, formal training in mixing. I find it to be a little more for the beginner than something, say, like Ozone, which is a mastering suite. This is a little bit more for the professional mastering engineer. The Neutron, of course, can be used for the professional mixing engineer, but really does help those that have a little trouble with, like, knowing exactly what to do. This assistant is rather interesting. The AI in this assistant is really nice. Let's run that through that bass line, I guess. So it's listening now to that bass line and preparing a custom processing for it. And it gave me the curve that it thinks it should have. That added a little noise to it, but we could add a gate to that. That's the type of noise that I was talking about. Let me turn this off so you hear what I'm talking about. Hear the noise in the background? Anyway, we could add punch to that, or make it less punchy, add some distortion. Or some trash. That really accentuated that little bit at the end. Play with the tone. off on it and just have a little bit, maybe widen it. I guess with bass, this is not a good idea. You want to go always maybe in the other direction with bass. But then when you want to get really into the nitty gritty here, you can have a look and work on it yourself and deal with the sound in a more advanced setting. Let's get some more of these sounds going in here. See what it says about this. So I'm dropping this one in here. Cosmic J is here. Welcome back, Cosmic J. And let's get the assistant going. By the way, tune in tomorrow for John Selway's Techno or Electro Saturdays. He's on at 1 p.m. every Saturday. Let's go to the assistant. See what it tells us should be happening to this track. Okay, it says it should have this tonal match here, but this has the white line represents what my sound is like. So let's see. This is my sound without any other match. This is trying to conform it to the match. Let's turn it off for a second. So basically taking some of the low end. John Selway is here saying maybe he's going to try Neutron tomorrow on the track, seeing what the assistant can do. So the assistant it tries. It certainly tries. You can have presets set up in here, and you could actually load in, which is really cool. You hit plus here, and then you can go and grab a sound that you think you want to match it to, and then it'll bring you to your. Let's just grab this loop randomly. And you could have it relearn based on whatever that sound was. I should have previewed the sound before that. But it'll try to set up a tonal match. To that sound, which is calling other right now. And you could take it from there. So you could have, this is again without any, and this is full on with what it's suggesting for you. So yeah, the assistant is pretty good at getting closer to a sound that you may have already. Once again, I do believe that this is for the beginner. I think that even I guess you could use it if you're even more advanced user. Maybe it becomes a little bit more of a time saver, and it might give you some interesting suggestions. Let's see what suggestions it gave us in the chain that it set up. It set up a sculptor, an equalizer, 2 compressors, and an exciter. Okay, so and the settings to fit that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's look at a little more what's happening here. I just wanted to look at just the last few minutes we have. I just wanted to look at the kind of meter position here. What's really cool is that you could apply limiting to your track immediately, and which is nice because it means it has a limiter also involved. Your ceiling would be here. And that's about it. I mean, you could do different styles though of limiting, thick and smooth, and the mode can be. They do have a couple. I think they have the IRC2 from the ozone limiter. I guess that's what do they call that though? Maximizer or ultra maximizer. It's one of those two. I always get those wrong, confused. And this IRCLL, and then there's a hard one there. So you do have a few different choices for intelligent release control for limiting, which is not bad that this is here. And of course you can do phase flipping and panning and width, all overall width can be applied to it. Yeah. Anyway, that's been a bit of Neutron. It's not a bad device. I kind of enjoy it. It does have good stuff set up. I like some of the things more than I like others. Like I really enjoy the fact that it has trash built into it. And this is, I mean, if you have trash already, then you know what I'm talking about. I do like, for everything that I've said about the assistant, it's starting to warm up to me. I really do kind of like the assistant. The sculptor is very nice. The dynamic EQ, the fact that it has dynamic EQ is very nice. So a lot of cool things about it. I'm probably going to use it in this fashion though, because when you install it, you get the Neutron 4, but you do get like all these the standalone devices here, which is great because you can just like this transient shaper is really good. That it has in there, it's probably one of the better ones I've seen so far. And if I need it in a mix, I could just drag in the transient shaper, which to me is probably going to be the way I'm going to do it. Probably not going to be using the whole Neutron every time I want to work with this. And you say, John Selway says every time we use anything MIDI, we can all be thankful to Dave Smith. Yes, Dave Smith did propose this MIDI thing to all of us. All right, so with that, I guess I'm going to have to say goodbye, everybody. And I'm going to see you again next Friday at 1 p.m. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for John Selway's. What is it? John is in the chat right now. Maybe he could tell us. Is it Techno Saturday or Electro Saturday tomorrow? It's always a toss-up. I don't know which one it is, Techno or Electro. Because John, sometimes, depending on his mood, will do either. So again, 343 TV you're watching, and my name is Abe Duque. I'm an instructor at 343 Labs. I have classes starting this week. If you want to get down with some and join a class, if you live in New York, you can come and take a class on Sunday that's starting. It's a mixing and mastering class. And you know what? After my class ends at 3 o'clock, John Selway has a sound design class starting on Sunday. So you fans of John Selway and his show, those of you who live in New York City, you can come and take his class on Sunday. And we'll be both in the building on Sunday. So if you want to meet us both, you can come by as well. And I'll be doing an immersive online starting on Monday myself. So with that said, I'm just going to close out, and I'll see you next week.